Have you ever thought that you might at this moment be inside the fear hole, and the fear hole made you forget that you entered the fear hole? So guys, how are you? I hope you are well. I am the Monio, the interdimensional demon, who talks the most about Rick and Morty on YouTube, and you are on my channel. I just watched the 10th episode of the 7th season of Rick and Morty, called Fear No Mort, and this episode was extremely unexpected, as it was a plot that involved not only the character's psychology, but also our curiosity, since here we got to know Morty's deepest fears, and we also finally had something more about Diane Sanchez's personality and story. Even though it was part of a projection of Morty's mind, it was very interesting to have an episode with Diane's presence, especially for those who waited almost a decade to actually see the character on screen. Everyone was imagining what the last episode of the season would be like, since the episode that most resembles a season finale episode is episode 5, on Morty'S, where we have the fight between Rick and evil Morty versus Rick Prime, and in my opinion, it is a response to the most toxic fans of the series. If you want to understand this point better, watch my video about episode 5 too, link in the cards. In evaluating the season as a whole, I would say that this was one of the best, and this is a surprise, as we recently had the departure of the series co-creator, Justin Roiland, removed from production and the Adult Swim channel, following accusations of assault and harassment, and everyone thought that this would directly impact the quality of the 7th season. However, what happened was the opposite, in my opinion. Since the 3rd season, this is probably the most solid and creative season we have had, with the last episode being one of the most striking in the series. This episode has several inspirations and cool concepts, such as the concept of a simulated reality, the concept of overcoming your fear that is present in horror works, the concept of waking up several times from a dream but in reality you are still trapped in that dream, and many others. The episode is also a great homage to several films and series that deal with the theme of fear, and its title is a reference to the film Fear No Mort, and the strange guy who talks to them at the beginning of the episode is a tribute to the presenter from the series The Twilight Zone. And yes, this series is one of the great inspirations of Rick and Morty. Even the opening is inspired by the opening of Twilight Zone. What surprised me most was the amount of plot twists that the episode has, without being obvious or repetitive. Seriously guys, first we thought they had left the fear hole, soon after the characters discover that they are still in the fear hole, and probably because of Rick. For a lot of the episode we're fooled into thinking it's all about Rick's fear, and you think, okay, that makes sense. The episode is going to be about Rick facing and overcoming his biggest fear, which is related to his wife. But what if you think the episode will have its resolution? We are surprised by a sequence of times in which Morty thinks he has overcome his fear, and frees himself, and through this repetition, we get to know all of Morty's fears. The episode reaches a point where they simply get tired and go live their lives, and there is that feeling of distrust, both in the characters and in the audience. Are they in the real world? Is that still the fear hole? And I confess that for a moment, I was wondering how interesting it would be if the episode ended, without revealing whether they were still in the fear hole or not. And that would be interesting from a series continuity point of view, as we've already had something similar in previous seasons, like when Morty discovers that the Rick who was with him that season until then was a robot, because the real Rick was busy obsessing over Find Rick Prime, and that's why he created that robot to replace him. We could have completely new episodes, in which canonical things would happen, characters could die, and other things that affect the continuity of the series could happen, and in a certain episode, reveal that in fact they were still inside the fear hole, and that nothing shown in these episodes really happened. It would be really crazy. But as interesting as this option was, I believe that the producers are no longer focused on creating this type of content, which encourages fans to create theories on the internet, since episode 5 was precisely a deconstruction of this type of content that fans consider it canonical and that it will affect the other seasons. And I think that was why we had the final revelation, that in fact Rick was never in the fear hole, and that the episode was never about Rick, but about Morty, more specifically about Morty's fear of trusting Rick. In the end, we had a definitive answer about Morty returning to reality, as the fear hole itself confirms this. But what if the scene in which the fear hole confirms it is actually part of Morty's own fear of remaining in the fear hole? But what if you are watching this video, do you think this is an illusion, and that you are inside the fear hole? Leave it in the comments, and if you like the video, subscribe to the channel so we can escape the fear hole and get back to reality. Until next time my people. demonic hugs.